Well, first of all, I just want to personally thank you for being here this morning. We are all gathered here together because this is an important moment for the future of our schools and our communities. There are 5 of us here today from Hillsborough, Manatee, Pasco, Polk, and Pinellas counties. And we're joined in this effort by the superintendents of many of Florida's largest school districts. We're all delivering one message: let's do more. Governor Scott proposed an increase in student funding of $152 per student in his initial budget. But the final state budget diverts nearly all of that money into school safety. That means the final amount of flexible funding for schools is increasing by just 47 cents per student. 47 cents. Let's do more than this for our students. Florida can do more than 47 cents for our future. School security is an important priority, absolutely. But the state is looking at a $5 billion increase to its budget next year. That means there is enough money available to fund what we need for both security and classrooms. For Hillsborough County alone, the difference between what was proposed and what ended up in the budget adds up to more than $30 million. That's $30 million we cannot use to support students and teachers. All of us here and the superintendents of Florida's large districts are standing together. We support Governor Scott and encourage him to take action. Let's do more for our students. Now let me introduce Dr. Mike Grego, Superintendent of Pinellas County Schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Eakins. The superintendents here today represent over 1/2 students in the state of Florida, and as importantly throughout the Tampa Bay region. They also represent over 40,000 teachers that we employ, and that's in addition to countless other employees in our school districts. Our message this morning is to the parents, it's to the business leaders, it's to the adults, to demand our elected officials to invest in the future of our state, our youth. It is to make a clear and loud statement that the quality of life in our communities is dependent upon that support. It's dependent upon the commitment and investment in a quality education system. We are a state that continues to spend less than just about every other state in the United States for our youth. In fact, 44th out of 50. We can do better than this. Florida is experiencing one of the healthiest economic periods in recent history. The governor, in his push, and we want to thank him for safe school spending, cited several times that the surplus revenue in this state is well over $3 billion this year. And with that surplus, our future youth received 47 cents. We should and we must do better. Florida lawmakers need to adequately fund the future of our state, our youth. The 47 cents increase in the money school districts receive in flexible spending will not cover the cost of providing the educational programs and the extracurricular activities that our students so well deserve. The flexible student funding that's called the base student allocation that's increasing 47 cents, as Superintendent Eakins mentioned, the governor's original proposal was $152. What a difference. Pinellas County Schools and many other school leaders in the district throughout Florida have long advocated for increased money for safe schools, and we received those resources this year. However, even as recently as yesterday, had a meeting with our sheriff and all the law enforcement agencies and chiefs. On our initial estimates, we received an additional $2.9 million in safe schools fundings that we will spend on trained officers for our schools. However, the initial estimates are saying that we're still between $6 and $8 million short, a deficit, to fully place a trained officer in each one of our schools. This deficit will have to come out of the general revenue, our schools, our classrooms, our programs, and really the educational services that we so want to provide. That's disappointing. In addition to that, when we look at 47 cents, we must also take a look at inflationary factors. we were notified that our electric bill is 7.5% increase this next year. For us, that's a $1.5 million conservative figure increase in electric costs. The Florida retirement system, we were notified by the state of an increase of that. For us, it's about a $1.8 million. Healthcare continues to rise across this state. For us, it's between a 4% and 6% increase, and on and on and on in terms of the cost of instruction, the cost of our primary business. Our state can afford to fund school security in the appropriate amount. Our governor, and again, I want to really thank him for coming out and speaking very boldly on the fact that we have the resources to not take these resources from the K through 12 allocation in order to fund school security. We want both. I believe, and our parents know, that we deserve both of these things. We're asking people in our communities to let Governor Scott know, to support that we must do something with this budget. We must bring our legislators either back to Tallahassee or adjust the budget. I want to be so bold to say to each and every one listening to contact Governor Scott. One of the things we saw, and I certainly saw and observed through the Parkland disaster, is that Governor Scott listened. He assembled 3 different committees and he spent time listening to that. I believe he will listen to this too. And so I'm asking that each and every one of you make education funding a priority in this state, and to communicate with Governor Rick Scott by emailing him rick.scott@eog.myflorida.com. So take out your smartphones, and it's rick, R-I-C-K, .scott@eog.myflorida.com. And let's just simply say, let's do more. We can do more. It's my pleasure to introduce the Superintendent of Polk County, Superintendent Byrd.
Good morning. Polk is growing, as well as some of our surrounding counties. We've become one of the largest school districts in Florida. Yet we still manage to make sure our teachers and staff connect with students at a one-on-one level. We're proud of that. But that environment may suffer a great deal. If the budget remains where it is, we expect that we'll be forced to make significant cuts. On behalf of 105,000 students of Polk County Public Schools, I'm here today to ask Governor Scott and our elected officials and let them know that we need to do more for our students. Shortchanging them is not an option. In the budget, the state provides some of the funding that is not related to security, but it comes with strings attached. Flexible funding, called the base student allocation, is the main way we pay for our teachers, buy our supplies, and support our classrooms. The base student allocation has to increase, or everyone standing here will be forced to make cuts for our students and our teachers. After adjusting the new costs of inflation and the loss of funding, Polk County could actually be facing a deficit. The state is very simple, not giving us enough to keep up with the cost of doing business. To cover these deficits, it would incur the proposed budget. We will have to make some very difficult decisions. This might mean cutting vital programs and services for our students. It may mean we cannot hire teachers needed to be in compliance with the class size amendment. It will surely put a strain on all of our teachers. This cannot happen to our children. They deserve better from us. As the largest employer in Polk County, our community's economic stamina is tied to our ability to provide our hardworking personnel the competitive salaries to keep up with the increasing cost of living. This is why I joined my colleagues in imploring Governor Scott to veto the budget and send a message to the Floridians they deserve adding funding to the classrooms for our teachers. In a year when $5 billion more of tax dollars were spent in the state, we say, let's do more for our students. Next, I'd like to introduce Kurt Browning, Superintendent of Pasco County.
Thank you, Superintendent. Less than 24 hours ago, Governor Rick Scott received this letter hand-delivered from me asking him to veto the education budget and call the legislature back into session to adequately fund public education. The proposed base student allocation of 47 cents per student statewide equals about $34,600 in Pasco County. That's in total new funding for Pasco County for the 18-19 school year. This amount is not even close to what we would pay a starting new teacher in Pasco County. Let's do more for our children. What's worse, compared to the third quarter calculation, Pasco schools will see a decrease of more than $2 in base student allocation from our 17-18 funding due to the changes in the funding formula. The overall FEFP per student increase for Pasco's children is only $88.49 compared to the statewide average of $101.50. If it weren't for the 1,001 new students projected to enroll in Pasco schools next year, Pasco would not see any new money. Let's do more for the kids that we serve. Let's finally adequately fund school safety and mental health. And for the money that we've given, I just want to reiterate how thankful I am that we have received those funds, while also providing school districts with the flexible funding necessary to educate our children. In order to provide school resource officers in every one of our schools, pay increased cost of utilities, insurance, and mandatory retirement costs. Also give our unfunded or underfunded, underpaid teachers deserved raises, and we must do more in order to do that. I've shared my letter to the governor with every employee in the Pasco district so that they know where I and the superintendents of the greater Tampa Bay area stand, and we will be sharing it with our families. We can no longer sit back and let the legislature disregard the needs for public school students. Let's do more. I am urging Governor Scott to call a special session and really demand that public schools receive adequate funding to keep children safe and provide them with that world-class education that we've promised them. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Diana Greene, Manatee County Superintendent of Schools.
Good morning. Manatee County is one of the fastest growing school districts in the state of Florida. If it had not been for our new student growth, we would continue to struggle as a school district. This morning I stand on behalf of the 49,000 students and the little over 6,000 employees to implore Governor Scott to do more, to call a special session to come back and review the FEFP. 47 cents. 47 cents for our students. In Manatee County, that would not add up to the salary of a beginning teacher. The school district of Manatee County took a stand 3 weeks ago to decide that we were going to put law enforcement officers in every single one of our schools. Through our flexible spending dollars, we were able to hire off-duty officers for every single school at the tune of a little over $500,000. We thank Governor Scott for putting school safety at the forefront. However, Manatee County will not be able to afford an SRO in every single school. We received a little over $1.4 million in addition, and through our calculation with our law enforcement agencies, we will still need to put in more than $1.5 million, and those dollars will have to come from our fund balance to ensure that our students are safe in our schools. We are hearing that they are giving record funding to schools this year. The point that's being lost is that almost all of that funding is tied to categorical funding for public safety, school security, and mental health. And as I just said, it is still not fully funding school safety. We appreciate and the attention that Governor Scott has given to these areas of funding. But we still need to pay our teachers. We still need to provide adequate resources for our classrooms. We still need to ensure that we meet the class size amendment. 47 cents won't make that happen. Our total state budget increased by $5 billion, and out of that, $3 billion is being put into reserve funds. That's being done on the backs of our students and our teachers. Let's fix this. Please, members of the community of Manatee County, email our governor and ask him to fix this. Let's do more. Let's decide that the education of our students and the security of our students are priorities, ones that we will not have to make a choice, one that we should know that our students are safe in our schools and that they are receiving a high-quality education. To conclude, I'd like to turn it back over to Superintendent Eakins.
Thank you, Superintendent Greene. So our time is limited. Governor Scott has a choice. He can sign this budget at any time, or he can veto the education portion of this budget. That would create a special session and bring the legislature back to Tallahassee to do more, or he could use another mechanism to create a fix to this particular situation for our public schools. We're asking everyone in our communities to reach out to Governor Scott with a message. Let's do more. Let him know you support bringing the legislature back to Tallahassee or having him create some mechanism to fixing this issue for our local schools. We need to do more for our students. So, take out your phone. Email rick.scott@eog.myflorida.com. Use the subject, let's do more. Explain in just a few sentences who you are and why you support bringing the legislature back to Tallahassee to do more, or for him to create a fix to this particular budget challenge that we're faced in our public schools in Florida. We want Governor Scott to see that there are thousands of people across our state who support our students. Thank you.
Good morning, Evan Donovan, News Channel 8. You very few tools at your disposal to make this happen. There's not a strong union. We've seen teachers in West Virginia walk out. Is that something you consider?
Well, there's a particular statute in the state of Florida that our teachers can't walk out. So this is really something that's solvable. I mean, I think we all have posed some of our own challenges, but I think we all know what the solution is. There's money available, and each time Governor Scott, and once again we applaud him, he came out very strong on the education budget this year. $152 more per child. I mean, that is huge for our public schools. I mean, as you heard from all the superintendents, we have rising costs. We have FRS commitments that we'll have to pay next year. In Hillsborough County alone, that's over $4 million more that we'll have to pay. We have rising health insurance. We have rising electrical costs. All those things to operate an organization or operate our school districts will cost more money. And of course, the 47 cents does not allow us to even keep up even close to that. So, we know there are dollars in surplus that can be used, and could be used perhaps to even fund the safety portion of, what the legislature has proposed. But those are the things that we feel right now have created great complexities for our local school districts to be able to operate our budgets and to do what's right for our teachers. I mean, in Hillsborough County alone, a one-step increase just for our teachers is about $18 million. 47 cents to our budget would mean about a teacher and a half worth of pay. That's about a little over $100,000. So we can't even come close to honoring those particular increases for our teachers and our educators, and we have more employees too, not just our teachers, our other employees that we want to increase their pay as well. We are the largest employers in our communities. We have the largest economic impact because we have more workers that pay rent, pay mortgage than anybody else. We are the economic engine. And so when we feel like our local teachers and our employees don't have the funds to really pay their rent or to put money back into the local economy, that's going to hurt our local economies. And so those are just some of the reasons that we brought forward today to really bring to the governor, bring out to our communities, and send a clear message that we know that if we want to provide a great future for the state, we have to start by investing in our students now.
Superintendent Eakins, the cost of security security, and some of your colleagues this morning were very, very specific about the gap between what the proposed legislation would provide, what it would cost. Hillsborough is by far the largest. So have you been able to calculate what it would cost to have a school resource officer in every single school as opposed to what is being provided in the proposed bill?
Sure, well, it's going to come up short. I'm going to tell you that, just like all the superintendents have said. So right now, currently in Hillsborough County, our Safe Schools allocation, we receive about $3.8 million. We spend already in Hillsborough County $16 million on security expenses a year. So that already tells you how much short we come up every year, almost $12 million. The Safe Schools increase right now will get us to about $9.8 million, around that particular figure. So you can see that we're not even up to our current level of security. And so we have 140 plus schools that we'll have to put a resource officer at, which means those dollars, just like Dr. Grego said, will have to come out of our general revenue funds to be able to fund that. The Safe Schools allocation isn't going to be enough to be able to provide a resource officer for every single one of our schools. That will have to come out of our general operating funds, which once again is taking dollars away from our classrooms to do.
So those additional 140 schools, have you ballpark how much more you would have to spend on security?
About $10 million.
Yeah, about $10 million.
Another 10,
Yep.
over and above.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Grego, Emerald Morrow from 10 News here. You spoke a little bit about per pupil inflation all of you guys have and how that's not kept up in the state of Florida. Can you all just maybe touch on what this specifically means for families and our students?
Yeah. So one of the things we really depend upon our elected officials each session is to take the base student allocation and to reflect upon the rising cost of doing business in education. We certainly understand, as each of the superintendents expressed, there are certain categoricals, whether it be transportation, instructional materials, and so forth. Those are, if you could envision, buckets of money that when we receive, like in mental health, we must spend that in mental health. But the base student allocation is a figure that, as superintendents and the general public needs to really be informed about this. Those are the resources that keep up with the cost of doing business, the cost of health care, the salary costs, every aspect. And it's the major portion of any school district's budget. Let it be known. It is not any of these others. It is the by far major portion. It's about 87–88% of at least of what a school district and how it runs. So when we deal with increased diesel fuel costs, increased health care costs, or increased electric costs, or all of these things have to be adjusted. The way our state formula runs is that we are dependent upon our state elected officials to recognize those increased inflationary costs and add to the base student allocation to counteract that. And so when the governor initially in his budget called for $152 per student, that's what he's taking in account for. The 47 cents is what we're visually, and the reality of it is there's multiple millions of dollars, regardless of the size of the district, of which the superintendents and school board members will have to figure out how to pay for, because those are ongoing operational costs. So what that does is it continues to bring money where? Out of the classroom. Those are the general operating costs. That's what funds our main part of the business.
Superintendent Byrd, question for you. So we had Sheriff Judd as well as the Parkland victim parents speak at the board meeting recently, and wanted to know if this moved the needle for you at all for the Guardian program, and if not, then how will your district pay for the additional SROs?
Well, as you know, the sheriff presented his plan for the first year of putting an actual SRO in every school would cost $12.7 million. Currently, we get 5.2, so we got an increase this year of about 3.3 million. So you can see we're shortchanged right there already at 7 million. For me, I'm still, opposed to putting and arming any staff member. I truly think it needs to be an armed person that is in uniform, that has been well trained. Our teachers are hired to teach our students. Our staff are hired to make sure that education continues daily with our students and that teachers are allowed to teach. They were not hired to be armed officers.
If I might add something about the program where $67 million was put into a categorical for that a one-time, non-reoccurring. What we're dealing with when that initial legislation was floated was we're dealing with an estimate of about 33,000 instructors, teachers, and other employees to be trained. That no longer is the case because that bill was adjusted to take out the classroom teachers, the people who are responsible for students. The majority, as you heard from the superintendents here, and certainly is the case throughout the state of Florida, the majority of schools, if not all schools, are elementary schools that do not have school resource officers. Anybody who knows how elementary schools are staffed, there's a principal. The only individuals that are outside of the classroom are a principal, assistant principal, maybe a secretary or a receptionist in the front, a library media specialist, maybe a guidance counselor, and then the custodial staff in the food lunchroom. We're not going to be spending that $67 million. It's well overfunded. We asked initially, and so did amendments were brought to the floor, to take that $67 million and put it to provide flexible spending so we could close that gap that's being spoken about between where we're at with the needs of resources for school resource officers, and that was denied. So you could see that 33,000 people to be trained in a guardian program is just not going to happen based on the staffing patterns of elementary schools.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us this morning. I want to personally thank the superintendents from our four surrounding school districts for joining us here in Hillsborough today. We hope we've made our message loud and clear to our communities and to our employees, and we once again urge everyone to reach out to our governor as quickly as possible and send a clear message. Let's do more. Thank you.
You keep the 47 cents.
I get to keep the 47 cents. Okay.
You guys go ahead and leave that down there. I want to make sure that he does it.
You need to go buy some coffee.